A quiet river flows between Mexico and the United States. At first glance, it looks calm, shallow in places, slow-moving, almost harmless. But this river, the Rio Grande, has claimed thousands of lives. This is the story of one of them, a father, a toddler, and a choice made out of desperation. Óscar Alberto Martínez Ramírez was 25 years old. He was born and raised in El Salvador, a country where many families work just to survive, where opportunities are scarce, and where leaving often feels like the only way forward. Óscar was married, and he was a father to a young daughter named Angie Valeria. She was just under 2 years old, still small enough to be carried everywhere, still dependent on the adults around her for everything. Like many parents, Óscar wanted more for his child than what he himself had grown up with. He worked where he could, but money was limited. Stability was uncertain. And over time, the idea of migrating north became less of a dream and more of a necessity. This wasn't a sudden decision. Families like Óscar's often talk for months, sometimes years, about leaving. They weigh the danger against the lack of options. And eventually, some decide to risk everything. Óscar and his family left El Salvador and traveled north through Mexico. The journey is long, dangerous, and exhausting, especially with a small child. But by mid-2019, they reached the northern Mexican border city of Matamoros, directly across the river from Brownsville, Texas. From there, their plan was simple. They would request asylum. When they arrived, they found themselves among thousands of others waiting for the same thing under U.S. policy at the time. Only a limited number of asylum seekers were allowed to present themselves each day at ports of entry. The process was slow. The lines were long. And many people were told to wait days, sometimes weeks, before they would even be allowed to begin. The family stayed in Matamoros, struggling to survive while waiting. Shelters were overcrowded. Money ran out quickly, and each day brought uncertainty. For parents with young children, waiting wasn't just uncomfortable, it felt dangerous. There was no clear timeline, no guarantee they would be processed, and no safe place to stay. According to family members, the day before the tragedy, Óscar and his wife went to the international bridge to try again. They were told to return another day. Once more, they were turned away. That night, they made a decision that countless others had made before them. They would try to cross the river. To someone who has never seen the Rio Grande, the decision might sound reckless. But to people stranded with no shelter, no money, and no clear path forward, the river often looks like the shortest route to safety. The water level that evening was deceptively low. In places, the river didn't appear deep, but currents in the Rio Grande are unpredictable, especially near bends and shallow drops. Óscar could swim. His wife could not. According to later accounts, the plan was for Óscar to carry Angie Valeria across, return, and try to help his wife. He tied his daughter inside his shirt to keep her secure. Then he stepped into the water. At first, everything seemed manageable. But as Óscar reached the middle of the river, the current strengthened. When he reached the far bank, he set the child down and turned back. But as he moved away, Angie Valeria became frightened. She jumped back into the water after him. Instinct took over. Óscar turned immediately and grabbed for his daughter, but the current was too strong. Witnesses later described seeing them pulled under. Within seconds, both were gone. The river eventually went quiet again. On the morning of June 24th, 2019, the bodies were found on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande. They were lying face down near the bank. Angie Valeria's arm was still wrapped around her father's neck. The image would soon travel around the world. Mexican journalist Julia Leduc photographed the scene as authorities recovered the bodies. The photograph showed exactly how they were found, a father and child locked together in their final moments. Within hours, the image appeared in international news outlets. Within days, it became one of the most shared images of the global immigration crisis. For many people, it was the first time they had seen the cost of migration so unmistakably. Not numbers, not statistics. A father and his daughter. The reaction was immediate and emotional. Newsrooms published long features about the family. Politicians referenced the image in speeches. Human rights organizations pointed to it as proof of the dangers created by restricted asylum access. Others argued about responsibility. Was it policy? Was it circumstance? Was it an unavoidable tragedy? But for the people who knew Óscar and Angie Valeria, the debate didn't matter. They were gone. The bodies were returned to El Salvador. Hundreds of people attended their funeral. Family members, neighbors, strangers who felt connected to the story. Angie Valeria was buried with toys. Óscar was buried as a father who never let go. El Salvador's president at the time publicly acknowledged the tragedy, saying it reflected the harsh reality faced by many families who felt forced to leave. And yet, even with global attention, the border crossings continued. They still continue today. The Rio Grande is now known as one of the deadliest migration routes in North America. Thousands have drowned attempting to cross it. Some misjudge the depth. Others underestimate the current. Many are simply too exhausted by the time they reach the water. Children are especially vulnerable, and families crossing together face impossible decisions in moments where hesitation can be fatal. What happened to Óscar and Angie Valeria was not an isolated incident. It was the result of a system overwhelmed by demand and constrained by policy. A system where human lives are often caught between bureaucracy and desperation. For families seeking asylum, legal pathways can be slow, confusing, and inaccessible. When options disappear, people turn to risk. That risk often ends in tragedy. The photograph of Óscar and his daughter did not change the border overnight. But it did something important. It forced millions of people to stop scrolling, to stop debating in abstracts, to confront the reality that behind every migration statistic is a human being, often a child who trusted their parent, a parent who believed crossing a river was better than waiting one more day. Today, the river still flows. People still line up at bridges. People are still turned away. And some will still choose the water. Óscar Alberto Martínez Ramírez and Angie Valeria Martínez are remembered not because they wanted to be symbols, but because their story shows what happens when hope meets desperation. This was not just a border crossing. It was a final act of love.